In this episode, we're going to be talking about excuses and how excuses lead to failure. Had a student in my class tonight. She was talking about going to the World Series of Comedy and how she didn't make it to the finals, and how so she's blaming the whole process. I'm failing because they're sexist. I'm failing because they don't like girls. I'm failing because one excuse after another after another. The other one was because the rules are changed in the middle of the competition. First of all, sexism. Let's address the sexism issue. Yes, there is definitely sexism in this industry. But she's an actress, and I'm like, you should be used to sexism in the industry anyway. Welcome to life. Life is filled with sexism. Why would you let that be is that a surprise? It's like, why would you let that be an obstacle to block you from achieving success by using it as an excuse? In stand-up comedy, sexism, and in comedy in general, sexism is present mostly because the business is male-dominated and has been for the millennia. So now, as there are more and more women coming into the business, it's starting to crack a little bit, but it's still there. It's still present. You go to these competitions, and I've got to say overwhelmingly that women are not winning them. And one of the reasons is perception. Perception, as you'll learn in this business, is everything. If you're perceived as a joke thief, you're going to be labeled and branded a joke thief. So you've got to change the perception by working hard and moving forward. So in the business dealing with an audience, the audience makes most of the decisions in this business. So audiences are used to and perceive comedy when they think of comedian. If you say comedian, an audience member is probably immediately going to picture a male. It's just how it's going to happen, right? If I say boss, hey, my boss, what do you picture? You probably picture a male. Right? It's just how we behave. I mean, it's changed a lot compared to what it was in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s, but it's still there. So the perception that a comedian is male is still present with the majority of the audience, overwhelming majority of the audience. But more females are coming into the business, and they should. This business, I'm a huge fan of having female comedians in the business because getting that female perspective is totally cool. I love to watch Whitney Cummings work. I like to actually watch her build an act from scratch when she first starts it and watch it evolve and become the show she finally performs on television or on her special. But she's a cool chick, and it's fun to watch her material evolve. And yes, cool chick, because you're watching it from a female perspective and a female's approach to life and a female's approach to relationships and a female's approach to comedy. So yeah, cool chick, and I mean that with total accolades, because Whitney's one of my favorites. I also like Amy Schumer for all the negative press she's gotten. I also understand how massively overwhelmed she must be, because most people don't know this, is like she signed some contracts and is obligated to create some specials over a certain time period and has to crank that material out. When you think about it, her first hour probably took her 7 to 10 years to get to. Now she's expected, especially after Trainwreck, the movie, which I thought was a nearly perfect romantic comedy, except it was 20 minutes too long because Judd Apatow self-admittedly says he goes 20 minutes too long in his movies usually. But I thought it was a great script that she wrote. After that success, the business got hungry and wanted more Amy Schumer. So they put the pressure on. She probably signed a contract requiring her to develop a certain amount of specials in a certain period of time. So now she's got all this pressure to put out this material. She either hired somebody or did it herself, and rumor has it that she lifted material, pardon me. But I don't know whether she did or not, but some of the stuff looks like it's pretty damning, That's like saying we don't know whether Trump colluded with the Russians. Well, that's all going to come out too. But here's the deal. I think Amy needs to lay back a little bit and stop being so aggressive. If you can't produce the material, then lay back a little bit. Because I'm a huge fan of Amy Schumer. If you watch the trajectory of her career, she worked her ass off to get where she is. So I'm going to cut her a little slack for now. So Amy's in the biz, right? And she worked hard to get where she is. But still, that's one star. So there's Amy, there's Whitney, there's Kathy Ladman, there's Wendy Liebman, there's Sarah Silverman, and there's not a lot of women there's Wanda Sykes, not a lot of women off the top of your head you can rattle off. But if you go to the men, there's a whole bunch, because overwhelmingly men have been the dominant presence in comedy, whether it's comedy writing or stand-up. So yes, sexism is present, but why are you making that an excuse? It's present in life, it's present in every job out there, it's just there. It's not more present in this business, it just is. My wife is an airline pilot. Talk about being male-dominated, right? There's the ratio of female pilots to male pilots is probably much larger than it is in stand-up comedy. So she's still striving and succeeding in that industry because she stays working. She keeps working. She stops focusing on that issue as an excuse. And that's one of the things that kills your career, is if you make excuses that don't matter. Like you sit there and you come up with these constant excuses, you're just putting up, you're cock blocking your own career, in other words, because you keep like, oh, the only reason I'm not making it is because it's sexist. Well, why don't you take that energy you're using to argue against the sexism and write a damn joke, or get better at what you do? How many mics are you doing a week? How many shows are you out there grinding out? I mean, you look at, she's been doing comedy 3 years. And to those of you who've been doing comedy 2 to 3 years, you start to get a little arrogant at that level. 2 to 3 years. I know guys who have been doing it 3 to 4 years who think they know everything about comedy. Trust me, been doing it 30, you don't. I'm still learning new stuff. So you got to stay open to the new information out there. You can't get arrogant. You can't say, I'm not going to do any more shows if I don't get paid. Well, give up then, because I still do shows that I don't get paid to, because you know what? I love to do this, and I'll do it at any mic that's available if it's available. I'll get up there and play, because there's always a new chance to learn and discover and meet new people and get new opportunities. So why would you say something like that? I won't do it unless I'm going to get paid. That's ridiculous, and it's not the way you approach this business. The second excuse is, they're changing the rules in the middle of the competition. How do you know that? And he said, well, because the founder of the competition was like, well, if you're late, I'm going to ding you a couple of points. If you run over your light, I'm going to ding you a couple of points. Well, he was in the finals, and so he didn't get dinged. I go, how do you know he didn't get dinged a couple of points? Did you check his scores? Did you see the results? Did you see the points they removed from what he did? No. Maybe he just killed it, and it didn't matter whether or not he had a couple of points removed. He still beat you. So instead of really looking at it and saying, was he better than me, really? Or was I better and I think I didn't get the scores because of some other reason? And that happens in competitions. Competitions are totally unpredictable. There was a competition, one of the World Series of Comedy, we're in year 4 or year 5. There was one guy that everybody expected to win. Everybody expected him to win. And then in the semifinals, he brought this weird story-based act that didn't really have any laugh points in it. It had a few. I mean, it was a funny idea, a funny story, but it wasn't hitting. And so the audience didn't give him the votes he needed, and he didn't make it through to the finals. And yet everybody thought he was like the shoe-in for this year's finals and this year's winner. But it didn't happen, because stuff changes in the moment. Another World Series of Comedy event, I think, you had some really strong acts getting towards the end there in the finals. And in the last finals, the show was filled with a bunch of old people. It was like a senior citizen night. Now, that's a different audience. And if you don't adjust your act for that crowd, they're not going to laugh at your material. So they're doing a bunch of youthful, edgy, jokes. I mean, if you're doing a joke about getting butt fucked while watching your Uber app, and you got a bunch of senior citizens out there, odds are they're not going to be too comfortable just laughing out loud at your material. They're going to be really uncomfortable. So you're probably not going to make it through that round. And so the winner was Clean. He decided to do Clean, and he won. And they're like, wow, we didn't expect him to win. Well, because as a comedian, part of your job is to be able to adjust for your audience based on where you're performing. Certainly, I do that when I'm performing for corporates. In clubs, I don't adjust as much, but I'll switch gears if the audience isn't buying what I'm selling. That's your craft, man. That's what you're supposed to do. but to make an excuse that rules are changed. So it was one of the things like, oh, he's supposed to be dinged on the points. Well, you know, you don't see the tally. How do you know he wasn't dinged? Again, making up an excuse that doesn't even exist except in your own mind. There's an actress I know who used to say, I'm not getting cast because I'm too old. What are you talking about? You know, you in this business or in any business, you'll get cast for exactly what you're right for, period. If you're not right for it, you don't get cast. So to say it's because I'm too old, too young, too fat, too skinny, got a zit, whatever, is bullshit. You're cast for exactly what you're right for. And if you're a really good actor or actress, you'll be cast for not only what you're right for, but sometimes what you're not exactly right for because you're such a good actor. Back in the day, my dad was doing auditioning for a movie called The Onion Field. It was written by an author called Joseph Wambaugh. Some of you may have heard of this, others maybe not. But he was in this, he was auditioning. And Joseph Wambaugh, he was playing a character called Itchy Mitch. He was auditioning for a character called Itchy Mitch. And Itchy Mitch is a skinny guy in the book. Skinny, kind of strangly, kind of a strung out, you know, drug addict. So my dad auditions for Itchy Mitch and plays this drug addict. And so Joseph Wambaugh is laughing his ass off. And at the end of the audition, Joseph Wambaugh said, "That's Itchy Mitch." And the director's like, "That's not Itchy Mitch. That guy's not skinny." And he says, "Trust me, he's going to be a great Itchy Mitch because he's a good actor." And he played it, and he had me believing it, and I wrote the fucking thing. So, I mean, because he was a good actor, he got cast for things that he wasn't truly right for physically, but he made the audience believe that he was that guy. So, to make excuses, you're just putting up your own obstacle. And what you're really doing is making excuses and paving the way for your failure. Because when you make excuses, that's basically what you're saying, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to make an excuse for the reason I didn't get this gig and blame it on somebody else, rather than analyzing and really being introspective about it and going, could I have done that better? What did I do wrong? How could I improve? If you're not listening, you're never going to improve. Interesting point was, during the class, as I'm explaining this whole thing about excuses to this individual, after it was over, she basically blathered out another excuse. And I was like, wow, that 10 minutes was completely wasted. You didn't listen to a thing I said. And then she was like, oh, I listened. I was like, no, you didn't. You didn't listen. You didn't listen. You didn't absorb it. You didn't take it to heart and say, I'm going to take that in consideration, because you're too busy trying to defend yourself and these excuses. So bottom line is, don't let excuses block your success. There's an old saying, you don't have to chase anybody. You just keep your head down, do the best work possible, and eventually people will chase you. I know this is a bit of a rant, but I hope it was helpful, and I hope it kind of inspired you, even despite the fact that it was kind of ranty and maybe critical. Sometimes we got to deal with the reality of what life is, rather than trying to make up fluff all the time. Stay positive, keep moving forward, keep your head down, do the grind, get the things done that you need to get done. Set a goal, make a plan, take action, go for it, and trust me, in the long run, you are going to be able to succeed in this business. I did, I continue to, and I continue to try to put together videos and help you guys, so I hope this was valuable in some way. I hope it inspired, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime. If you have any questions about this amazing business called stand-up comedy, or comedy writing for that matter, hit me up on Twitter. My handle is @JokeDoctor. That's the @ symbol, of course, and JOKEDOCTOR. And hit it with the hashtag #AskTheJokeDoctor, and I'll be happy to answer your question in a video like this. So once again, hope this has inspired you, has been of some value to you, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.